My name is Gil Haberman. I'm from VMware, and I'm very excited to tell you a little bit about disaster recovery to the cloud based on Site Recovery Manager 5 with vSphere application. Site Recovery Manager 5 release last month has been the most exciting one that we had to date, and one of the things it enables is this use case of disaster recovery to the cloud. And I'm very happy to host several service providers that have already worked and started implementing this type of solution. So I'd like to introduce to everyone, we have Vince Conroy from FusionStorm, Omar Torres from VeryStore, Matt Ferrari from Hosting.com, Dante Orsini from Island, Chris Pinkney, that was the tricky one, right, from Somas, and Jeff Gills from Somas as well. So before we begin, and we're going to hear a lot from these providers about the new type of solution, I just want to kind of set the stage and talk a little bit about Site Recovery Manager 5 to those who are not familiar with our product. So SRM is the leading disaster recovery solution for virtualized environments that automates the recovery process between sites. And it does essentially three things. From SRM 5, one of the things is it provides replication of files between the sites. Up until 4.1, we're required to have storage-based replication, and that is still an option, but today we also provide our own cost-efficient and simple-to-manage vSphere replication to replicate files between sites. The second thing it does is it replaces the manual runbooks that are usually associated with disaster recovery with an automated process that is managed through vCenter, through one central place. So it makes it very, very easy to make sure that you set up your DR solution quickly and maintain it very, very easily. And finally, it automates the failover process between sites. So it enables non-disruptive testing. You can do testing of your complete recovery plan without interruption or disruption for the production site. And the entire process is automated, so you know the execution is going to be exactly as expected, especially when you can frequently test and you know what your RTO and RPOs are going to look like. We also have, from this version, a failback process, failback mechanism that allows you to fail back to the original site in basically using the reversal of the original plan. So as I mentioned before, we are introducing vSphere application for the first time. We think that it's going to be a great enabler for a bunch of use cases. Sometimes when you don't have storage-based replication, you can now use SRM. Maybe you couldn't do that earlier. And then the second thing might be working with service providers to enable DR to the cloud, as they're going to talk about soon. I think it's a great solution. It really helps streamline the management of replication as well as DR in general. The two other features that I wanted to mention associated with SRM 5 are automated failback and planned migration. Automated failback allows you to fail back to the original site after failing over. And planned migration is a new workflow that we introduced that basically allows a zero data loss and application-consistent migration of virtual machines from site to site. And these two features are directly respond to feedback that we got in events like these last year, where we realized that by now SRM is not only used for the classic disaster scenario, it is mainly used for disaster avoidance and planned migrations. Many times you have some time before there's going to be an outage. Let's say, and Hurricane Irene is coming. You know you have a few hours to move the virtual machines to the other site. This is a classic disaster avoidance case where you can use our planned migration workflow to make sure that you move the virtual machines to the other site in a clean manner, in an application-consistent manner, and then you use failback in order to fail back to the original site. So I think these features are going to be very, very useful for most of you, and so I wanted to point these things out. So let's move to DR to the cloud. We have a ton to cover, so we're not going to have a lot of time for questions, but I did want to keep it interactive. So if you guys want to send feedback, send questions, ask for more information, you can send an email to SRM, like Site Recovery Manager, at VMware.com, even during the session. Okay, so you're welcome to do so. First, I'd like to invite our Fusion Storm guys to talk a little bit about how they see enterprise customers use this type of solution, what they have done, and what makes DR to the cloud such a strong value prop for customers.
Great. Thanks a lot, Gil. We're really excited about this product offering because it's something that's been needed for a long time. We've been looking at SRM and integrating it into what we do as a service provider. And we're really excited about the SRM 5 announcement because it overcomes some of the major roadblocks and issues that I think we've seen around SRM that some of you have seen. So, by the way, we're in booth 1349, so any questions you have, come by and see us at our booth, and we'd love to talk to you more about our solutions. I also have Scott McAdare with me, who's a senior solutions architect, specifically working on our cloud offerings. And I'm going to let Scott talk about a little more of the details about how the service works. But I want to step back and look at, what are some of the challenges around implementing DR today? Well, typically, if you look at most CIOs, they say, on their top 10 list, implementing some kind of business continuity is a very high priority. But the solutions have been complicated and slow. They've been impossible or very difficult to test. There's not been really any guarantee of success. It may not work for every application. Sometimes it requires specialized skill sets. And not all organizations have a second DR site, have a second data center or another site that they can use for DR. And then they may not have 24/7 staff ready to initiate the failover and to do the other things that might be necessary. And lastly, but most importantly, sometimes the cost is just too high. So you end up looking like this poor guy, if any of you can relate, to, hey, we need to implement DR, but how do I go do it? How do I make it happen? Well, there's traditionally been just a lot of roadblocks. So we've implemented in our services as a Fusion Storm, and I'll talk more about this in a second, we are both a solution provider doing on-premise services for customers as well as a hosted service provider. So we've implemented a solution we call IT Express DRaaS, or DR as a service for VMware, and it is provided 100% as a managed service. It's easy to purchase and deploy, and includes biannual failover testing, plus you can also do non-intrusive testing as part of what the feature set that SRM 5 provides. It supports virtually any app that's running under VMware. We provide a comprehensive set of SLAs, so all the services that we deliver with it are all governed by an SLA. It's hosted in multiple DR-safe data centers, including the SuperNAP here in Las Vegas. It's one of our flagship data centers is actually right here in Las Vegas, which is a pretty disaster-safe location. And we offer full 24/7 support and a simple, affordable monthly pricing plan. And we think this is really one of the missing pieces that enables companies of all sizes, small, medium, and large, to be able to implement DR solutions. So I'm going to turn it over to Scott and let him talk a little bit in more detail about how the service works.
Yeah, here we go. So most of you, I'll start all over again, have invested heavily in your infrastructure. A lot of time, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into this virtual infrastructure that they've built. Vast majority, we've probably spent a lot of time backing up that infrastructure too. Typically, though, where do those backups go when you've done them? Most of the time, they're on premises. Either a network-attached storage or some other type of local storage attached to your backup system. Some of you may be more fortunate than others and maybe have a deduplication solution that you send to another site. But that does require a secondary site and that expensive infrastructure to put in. Another solution may be you replicate to tape. Well, what happens when those tapes are off-site and your building gets hit by a meteor? Typically the return to operations, your RTO, is very high, along with your RPO is very high also, because you may be relying on tapes that are several days old to a week. You have to build up that infrastructure to restore that information and get your build up your secondary vCloud to bring that up and running. Well, what our solution provides, it utilizes primarily VMware's vSphere replication. Sorry, this whole thing is throwing me off. vSphere replication, again, like as Vince said, has hosted in our multiple SAS 70 Type 2 data centers, including SuperNAP and locations in Europe and other locations in the United States. We utilize vSphere Replication Manager to do change block tracking on your VMDKs, so that we do very do a full synchronization. Then we do very small replications, only the data that's changed. We can give you RPOs anywhere from 24 hours down to 15 minutes. We also do support other industry standard replication currently, such as EMC Recover Point, EMC Mirror View, and other array-based solutions that SRM supports, but primarily EMC solutions at this point in time. Included services include replication monitoring. We have a 24/7 staff data center in multiple locations. We monitor your replication. So if for some reason one of the replications fails, our staff is alerted, and we'll be able to assign an engineer to figure out what's going on with the replication, and we'll also notify you that there was an issue with the replication and do everything that we can to get that remedied immediately. As Vince mentioned, we offer biannual failover testing. This allows you to bring up your network in a bubble without affecting your current production. It allows for a crash-consistent failover of your data center for complete testing. It provides application consistency when planned and file-level consistency at all levels of disaster declaration. We also offer, obviously, failover on disaster. So if you do happen to have a problem with your site, you would call our NOC and issue a DR event. The NOC would then kick off the recovery plan for you. It's fully managed, fully done. All you have to do is call us and say, "Hey, we're having an issue," and we'll start that event. We will also offer scripted failback. By default, vSphere replication on host-based does not offer automated failback, so we will script that failback for you. But we will also support automated failback via array-based replication. We also have, like I said, customizable SLAs, time from 24 hours to 15 minutes for your RPO. We can also customize your RTO times too. We will also deliver reports based on those failover tests that we provide that show what your RPO and your RTO are in an easy-to-read format, so that you can hand that back to your bosses and say, "Look, we recovered our whole entire data center in a half an hour, and our data was only 15 minutes old at that time." And then again, we also offer 24/7 support.
Great, thanks, Scott. So we're basically offering the service in a couple of different flavors. We offer it as we call our IT Express DRAS standard offering, which is standalone virtual machines or any number of virtual machines that could be across multiple ESX clusters, replicated and protected by individual VMs in a shared multi-tenant secure infrastructure. And in that model, we're supporting the built-in vSphere replication. We also have we call our advanced option, which is using dedicated ESXi vSphere clusters in our data center that are dedicated for a single customer. And that has a little more flexibility in terms of how it's provisioned. And we also support multiple replication technologies with that, including EMC Recover Point and other array-based replication technologies. And also because FusionStorm we are not only just a hosting provider and a cloud service provider, we are also a solution provider. We have a VAR side to our business too. It's actually the larger part of our business. And so we can provide on-site migrations and upgrades to vSphere 5. So in order to use vSphere replication, you do need to be on vSphere 5, version 5. So we can provide you with upgrades on the site, on-site consulting, on the on-premise side of the installation, all the way through to our cloud-based solutions. And we are a VMware Premier and VIP service provider. So as I mentioned, a little bit about FusionStorm real quick. Come see us in booth 1349. We have an IT consulting part of the business. We have our technology solutions, which is our solution provider, VAR, on-site, on-prem consulting side of the business, as well as we are a cloud/managed services provider. And we've been doing this for over 10 years. We've been in the cloud services and managed services business for over 10 years. So thank you for VMware. We really appreciate you guys doing the great work that you've done on vSphere 5. It's a great product for service providers. We think it's going to be a great product for the customers as well. So
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, so it's great to hear that you can kind of have either the shared model or a dedicated model with SRM and specifically with DR to the cloud. One of the things that came up in conversations with Omar from VeriStore is that they have a lot of SMB customers, and they tend to like more kind of the fully managed service. And so I thought it would be interesting to hear from Omar about the offering that they had built and how it's going to look like.
Thanks, Gil. Appreciate it. So, folks, Omar Torres, Director of Virtualization and Cloud Solutions for Veristore Systems. Very, very excited to be here to have the opportunity to take a few minutes and share with you our thoughts on what we see as a transformation that is occurring in the industry today around adoption of the public cloud. Over the last 10 years, as a solutions provider, we've helped hundreds of different businesses and organizations throughout the U.S. Implementing and deploying virtualization technologies within their primary infrastructure, right? Obviously with a heavy focus around server, desktop virtualization, storage virtualization, networking, and then data protection strategies. When we look at the growth that we've seen over the last 3 to 4 years, in particular to the SMB segment, what we're finding is that more and more of the opportunities that we're presented with is customers looking to implement some type of disaster recovery solution within their primary infrastructure. There's a couple of reasons for that, but the primary driver for that is really that when you look at the SMB infrastructure today, that typically represents an environment where the customers are able to virtualize 100% of their infrastructure from day one. Right? Typically, they're dependent on Microsoft-centric applications. There's no real dependency on any non-x86 platforms or legacy mainframe systems. So they're typically the infrastructure that's very quickly able to move into phase 2 or phase 3 of that virtualization journey. Right? Hence, looking at the ability to leverage the fact that their applications are now encapsulated. Virtualization has provided that abstraction necessary to make it easy to move those applications from one facility to another. But there's still a challenge there, and that challenge is around cost. Right? If you look at the traditional cost, both capital and operating, to invest into a secondary infrastructure, it represents a very challenging investment for that organization for an infrastructure that's really only represents a return on investment if and when you have to use it. Right? That is a secondary infrastructure now that you have to manage, especially look at the growth that happens in the primary side, as well as the need to refresh that hardware over a 3 or 4 or 5 year life cycle. That becomes very difficult for you as the IT business unit of your organization to justify that cost back to the business, right? And that's why you find so many companies today that are still operating at such a risk of having no DR solution in place, or they're leveraging backups or tapes or some kind of legacy model that just doesn't give them the ability to have that quick failover that they really need, right? So that's where we spent a large part of last year developing what is today our cloud continuity for VMware service. And this service is designed specifically to address that cost need. And that is to allow you as the IT organization to essentially consume infrastructure as a service in the public cloud, specifically for disaster recovery. Right? So when you're looking at protecting your primary applications, all of your virtual machines, you're not really worried about necessarily having the same infrastructure now in place, because you're just looking to protect and provide the raw resources that you need to service those systems in the event that you have a disaster. Right? Those raw infrastructure resources being compute, CPU and memory, storage, and then networking and security. So that's really where our service is designed to allow you to consume those in an on-demand, utility-based model where you're billed monthly for using those resources. All of our infrastructure today is housed in SSAE 16 Type 2 and PCI Level 1 certified data centers throughout the U.S. It's all built on VMware vSphere as the foundational platform, as well as we're partnering with a number of other technology partners to help power that infrastructure. We're doing a number of very, very unique things at the network layer to essentially provide full transparency of your Layer 2 and Layer 3 routing and network infrastructure, so that when your virtual machines fail over to our environment, they can come up and expect the exact same access to the network as they would in the primary side. Right? And then with the advent of SRM 5.0, we're now able to offer a lot more advancements around shorter recovery time windows, and also helping reduce the cost when you look at the implementation of the vSphere replication. Right? If you looked at traditional SRM, required storage array replication. And in some cases, that's very costly for organizations to have to invest in that secondary array that, again, is really an insurance policy, a very expensive insurance policy. Right, so we have the option today to support a number of different storage array replication for those customers who require shorter RTOs or have some other requirements from an array perspective. We can support those, but we're very excited to announce our support for SRM 5.0, further reducing our costs to our customers. Now, when you take a look at our infrastructure real quick at a high level, this kind of shows you a little bit of how we've architected our solution. And we've spent a lot of time in really making sure that our architecture is as simple and as efficient for our customers to leverage, right? The idea of us being a service provider is not to make it complex for you. It's for you to be able to focus on managing your primary side, your primary infrastructure, while we as the managed service provider really take ownership in helping you manage the infrastructure needed as well as the disaster recovery, the recovery plans, and all the planning necessary to do a correct failover. So if you kind of take this from the start, at the beginning, the first thing we do is we work with customers on-premise, establishing the necessary secured communications from their data center into one of our secured cloud data centers. Today, we support a number of different connection types, primarily IPsec VPN over dedicated internet. We'll support dedicated circuits. We also can support MPLS as well. But once that communication framework is in place, then we can start replicating the data securely into our cloud storage environment, which you see down there in Section 3. All of that is done through our secured network framework. Essentially, we are leveraging a platform by Fortinet that allows us to essentially virtualize your Layer 2 and Layer 3 network and provide you that secured multi-tenant isolation that you need in our shared environment. Then we have the ability to support, again, either hardware replication, the storage array, as well as software replication, or the vSphere replication, by implementing the SRM components on the primary side. Once that data is already there, essentially what we now have is copies of your virtual machines, right? Whether it's your Exchange servers, your SQL servers, your SharePoint servers, your file and print, Active Directory, we now have copies of those virtual machines secured in your isolated environment, which then, in the event that you need to fail over, we can start going through the recovery process of bringing those systems online and accessing our shared vSphere compute environment, right? So this is really, in a nutshell, it's a shared environment, but with dedicated resources specific to guaranteeing the SLAs that you need, again, for the purpose of disaster recovery. And as you can see, everything is housed in an SSAE 16 PCI Level 1 secure data center, so you get all the levels of redundancy and power, cooling, and security that you would expect out of a Tier 3 facility. Now, we talked about technology, but really at the end of the day, folks, this is really about costs, right? I mean, the technology is great, but if you can't afford to do DR, right, then the technology is not going to do you any good, right? And that's really where this comes into play. And to kind of give you an example, if you look at the traditional SMB infrastructure, right, you've got anywhere from 5 to 10 ESX servers, roughly anywhere from as little as 25 virtual machines to 75 or more virtual machines, right? You've got, say, 5 to 10 terabytes, in this case, iSCSI-based storage, using vSphere Enterprise Plus, virtualized all of your applications, and then you've got to look at bandwidth, right, necessary to go to the other side. So if you want to protect that infrastructure, right, you look at the costs associated with that, you're looking at potentially $300,000 to $320,000 or more to manage that infrastructure over a 3-year life cycle period, again, just for a what if we need to use that. That's very expensive and very difficult, for, especially in the SMB space, for customers to justify that kind of capital and operating costs, again, for a what-if scenario. Right? Now, if you compare that to our service offering, you can see where we can clearly offer anywhere from 40 to up to 60% cost reduction around managing and owning that infrastructure yourself. Right? So if you look at the way we've broken out our pricing, 99% of the time you are charged for what's called our standby fee. Right? That standby fee represents fixed storage and bandwidth costs, in this case, 10 terabytes of Tier 3 storage with 10 megabits of bandwidth coming into our data center. Right? And then we charge a small reservation fee for the compute, right? Because 99% of the time you're not running out of our environment, so you're not really consuming compute resources. But we need to make sure that we can guarantee those resources when it comes time to fail over. Right? Now, if you look at that, right, a clear comparison there, $144,000 over a 36-month contract Clearly, a very beneficial cost perspective for organizations looking to do DR. Now, let's say you do have to fail over. When you do have to fail over, then that's where you'll see an upcharge in the compute fees. Well, now instead of $4,000 a month, you're charged $7,000. Let's say you run out of our environment for 4 months. That's what you're charged for. So call it a 36-month contract where you ran out of our environment for 4 months. You're still only looking at $174,000 over that 36-month term. So clearly some major benefits there from a cost perspective, right? It's now allowing you to slowly transition to getting used to consuming infrastructure as a resource from a resource-based perspective instead of the traditional one-to-one hardware dependencies involved, right? It helps eliminate that costly refresh cycle that organizations get caught into, right? Look at, you go and you deploy that infrastructure yourself. 3 years, 4 years, it comes time to refresh that. Now you've got a budget for new hardware that, again, is for an insurance policy. It just doesn't scale well long term, right? And then, obviously, with the advent of vSphere SRM replication, we're able to now reduce even more our monthly costs because now we're able to leverage that replication model instead of having to support native array replication. And then as well as we're now able to allow SMBs to really achieve affordable, short RTOs, right, through the ability of the automated failback and failover and failback that SRM provides. Right. So again, folks, would love to share. We've got a lot more that we can share with you. You can find me. I'll be spending some time at the Trend Micro booth during the show talking about some of the things that we're doing from a security perspective around our cloud services. But love to get a chance to talk with all of you more. Look for me. You'll also find some of our engineers with our VMware shirts on. And I think that's it. Thanks,
Great.
Gil.
Thanks, Omar. I think it's so exciting for me to think about how far we've gone through in the past couple of years, reducing the overall costs of DR protection, reducing the costs of replication with vSphere application, really taking advantage of cloud, and so now really SMBs can move from backup into a true DR reliable solution. It's a major change that we've done in just a few years, and I'm super proud that we're in a position to offer this already. The one thing that I want to talk to you about, and here there are screenshots, so it's going to be interesting, is how Hosting.com is implementing this solution. It is integrating the solution into their existing platform, and so what we'll hear now is a little bit more about how the UI looks like from the user perspective.
Very good. Can everybody hear me? Yep. All right. Yep. Very good. So my name is Matt Ferrari. I'm our VP of Engineering for Hosting.com. We've been a VMware partner for quite a few years. Just to give you guys a little bit of background, we have been in the cloud hosting space now for 3-4 years. We've got 4 sites currently set up that actually speak to each other. The main use case for our customers today is really hybrid hosting. A lot of our service providers are coming from the dedicated or co-location world and actually looking to us and other service providers, like the gentleman to my right here, to actually find the ability to, over time, reduce costs by dipping their toe into cloud computing. So that was our first foray, which is our hybrid hosting. Our next one actually was one that we recently launched, which was our SAN-to-SAN replication product. That actually is leveraging SRM4, as well as Recover Point from EMC. What we're happy to announce today, obviously, is that we are moving forward in the SRM5 area, and we're going to kind of walk through the user experience of how we're setting that up for our customer base. A little bit about us. This is the only marketing-based slide. We do have thousands of customers out there and over 13,000 virtual machines. We do have 4 sites across the United States, over in Delaware, Kentucky, Denver, Colorado, and Irvine, California. We do have a 5th site that is not currently cloud-enabled, which is why it doesn't have a cloud in San Francisco. What we've found is that the vast majority of our clients today are not only recommending our service to other organizations, but they're recommending our cloud services. And our recent poll said that 86% are highly likely to recommend Hosting.com to another organization. One of the neat things about Hosting.com is that we actually have, we're a fully managed service, so we actually support all of the applications that we provision into our environment. Most customers bring in their own VMDKs or OVFs in many cases, but we also have an automated provisioning service that allows them to provision a wide array of software, which will be supported by SRM5. So how does it work? We try to keep this very simple, but the whole concept here is that the vast majority of our customers today have primary infrastructure with us. This example is one of our examples of our cloud service site to site. So I mentioned that we have 4 locations today. So picture your primary infrastructure being in Denver, Colorado, and you want to have disaster recovery in our Kentucky data center. So today we run everything on our vSphere environment. So our customers run a various amount of Linux and Windows virtual machines and leverage Site Recovery Manager 5 in order to actually replicate those so that at time of disaster, the customer has complete control of failover. One of the neat things that I like about this service, obviously, is that now we're doing true vSphere replication. One of our challenges before was that a lot of our customers had a barrier to entry because maybe they had their own storage device and they were worried about replication from site to site. So that's been a very, very exciting component of vSphere 5. So what are the value props? The value props for our customer is our customers have constantly been telling us that they want an aggressive RTO and aggressive RPO. Not all applications are created equal. So they actually wanted to be able to say, maybe my billing system is more important than my ticketing system. Maybe my order taking is more important than my notification to customer system. Probably true. Certainly true for me. So what we wanted to do was be able to provide customer granularity so that they could actually see the time of failover and set priority or set a disaster recovery plan. So in addition to that, what we really are focusing on is testing. I actually had breakfast this morning with an individual who told me, hey, my DR test failed. At time of disaster, 4 of my applications recovered fine and the 5th one didn't, and I had no visibility into why. So, very important piece of SRM5, give the customer the ability to run a test and show them if it failed, why it failed. So we are very, very focused on that with Hosting.com. The next one is only protect the VMs that you need to protect. In order to reduce costs, maybe you don't need to protect VMs that are not mission-critical applications. And then finally, we talk about our portal integration. We do have a self-service portal. It is an SDK, so a lot of our customers and vendors actually build into it, including VMware. And we've been working with VMware in order to provide the customer the ability to do things like to change their priority of their disaster recovery plan, test their disaster recovery plan, fail over and fail back. And that's actually what I'm going to show you guys. So if we take a look, this is an example of our portal. So today, what you would see is the ability to choose which virtual machine you want to protect from a wide array of whatever virtual machines you have with us. You can then choose what site you want to protect it to. You probably don't want to protect it to the same site where your production's at. So that became very important. As we kind of click through here, what you'll see is that the recovery status will show you the status as, are you protected? Are you unprotected? Is there a failover? Is there currently something going on? So if we take a look here, you'll see it might be a little bit of an eye chart for everybody, but hopefully not. What you'll see here is you'll see different colors in that status window there. And what you'll see is that some VMs are unprotected, probably not mission-critical applications. Some of them are currently protected. Some of them are recovering actively. So there's currently a failover going on. What you'll see there in Server 4 also is it shows the progress of where my recovery is. My CIO is probably going to ask me, how long is my failover going to take and where is it at time of disaster? He's probably blowing up your phone. So it's pretty important to be able to see in the portal where does that stand today. And then how much data loss do I have, or how much am I going to be at risk of losing at time of disaster. And then the sixth one that we have up here is failed, which actually shows that there was a problem. And if you see under the action, and let me click through here, view log will actually drill down and show you why did that fail. So hopefully your IT staff can take action. We have 4 statuses here. The first one obviously is protected. That means that you, the customer, are paying for SRM5 protection at one of our cloud sites to another cloud site. The second is unprotected. That's the status quo of today for most cloud customers out there. The third is that something is currently recovering. That means that there's actually failover or at time of disaster that's taking place. And then the final one is that it's failed. Hosting.com is a managed service provider. One of the neat things is that when there is a failure, our organization is notified. We have a 24/7, we call them entourage. So picture a small pod of people that are dedicated just for you. And those individuals are notified when there is a failure so that they can contact you, find out when something failed, and probably either bring your system up to date to ensure that it didn't fail, reinstall the agents if necessary, depending on some of the agents that we have running on your virtual machine, and get you back up and running with a successful test.
Great, thanks. I think it's great to see how using vSphere application, we can now have kind of the granularity that makes sense, right? We only replicate the VMs that we want. We don't have to replicate complete LUNs.
Good job.
And then we only decide to protect the VMs that need and decide what kind of RPOs and RTOs we need for each of those VMs. So I think it makes a lot of sense. The last thing that I wanted to cover today is you probably are very excited about this and want to get one of those babies as soon as possible. So I want Island to cover a little bit about how they're going to market, how they're using the channels, the channel in order to provide the service, and also talk to our first customer that we already have. So take it away, Dante.
Thanks, Gil. Am I on, guys? Bueller? Anyone? Hello? Yo.
Yo.
All right, sounds like not there yet. You guys hear me all right in the back?
Yeah. There we go.
Excellent. My name's Dante Orsini, and the mic's on now, so I appreciate that, guys. I want to talk just a little bit about iLand. We do a tremendous amount of business in the disaster recovery space, but I want to give you a little history on how we got there. Our company's privately held. We're based in Houston. How many people have been in Houston? How many have suffered through a hurricane in Houston? Hey, well, 4 years ago at VMworld, we actually were sponsoring an event, but we didn't make it. Our staff wasn't here, but, excuse me, Gil. We actually had a hurricane come through Houston, and it was kind of unique, right? I mean, we were all planning to come out here for VMworld, and no one could get out here because of the flights. So we were actually failing over our entire virtual infrastructure to protect all of our customers preemptively to protect them from the hurricane. Now, 4 years ago, if you think of the technologies that we had, within our grasp, we had a lot of different technologies. In this case, we were leveraging SAN-based replication. And for us, it was very convenient, but we had to manage the entire recovery process if there was ever a problem. So over the years, we have innovated and added additional services to our solutions that we bring to market. But our company, just a quick snapshot on us, like I said, we're based in Houston. We've grown pretty quickly. We have 5 data centers in the United States that we manage, and we have 2 in London, and continuing to grow throughout Europe. So for us, we're a premier VMware service provider. All we do is cloud services. We focus strictly on the infrastructure stack. And in doing that, we really focus heavily on production, disaster recovery, test and development environments. But from a DR perspective, we've actually marketed, I should say, branded our solution the Continuity Cloud. And in this solution, we're really just laying that out as a brand that covers all things continuity. So historically, we've worked with customers. I really want to echo everything that some of our panel members have said today. I mean, obviously, when we talk about DR, it's usually on a CIO's top 5 initiatives for the year, right? At least when we're kicking off the year. So if you guys are obviously looking at these initiatives, it's also the first one that can fall off that table, right? So if you virtualize your infrastructure, obviously now you have the means to protect it, but you also have the necessity to protect it, right? Because just because we've consolidated, we're obviously weighing a lot on the infrastructure that we've consolidated, and now we're looking for ways that we can cost-effectively protect the environment. So initially, when we came to market to deliver these services, we wanted to provide a very cost-effective approach. Again, leveraging guest-based, host-based, SAN-based replication technologies to provide our customers with the most cost-effective ways of protecting that environment. I believe someone over here mentioned standby resources. That's something we coined several years ago, but the idea is to leverage our virtual capacity in a secondary DR site so we can keep those costs low, right? But we are so excited about SRM 5. Here's why. We have a lot of experience with SRM, but typically this is going to require a significant investment from our customers. Yes, it makes sense to work with a third party, an organization that can actually take on your secondary site and operationalize those expenses. But historically speaking, we had to invest in the exact same infrastructure footprint on both sides, make sure we obviously had the proper network and connectivity, but then we also had to deal with SRM licensing, right? So historically, it was a costly proposition. Now, was it the right proposition for many organizations? Absolutely. It was the creme de la creme. Everyone wanted this solution. Why? Because they could automate the recovery process. Let's face it, guys, it was the easy button. From an administration perspective, if I can get someone to buy off on that in my organization, from a budgetary perspective, I'm a happy camper versus trying to, manage a secondary site, script the recovery myself, and hope and pray that I can test this stuff, right? So that's why we're really excited about SRM 5, because it's introduced this new capability of vSphere replication. So that allows us to really take a solution to market that is going to give us even more ability to provide a cost-effective solution, but also provide our customers or our partners with the opportunity to actually manage the recovery themselves without any kind of island intervention. So we think that is very, very powerful. So for those of you that are in the back, I'm going to try to walk through this slide. It's probably a little busy, probably hard to see, and I can tell they reformatted the text, so I apologize for that. But if you look at the far side, from where I'm standing, we're just basically showing a basic ILAN cloud data center. From a network perspective, we're 100% Cisco shop on the outside as well as on the inside. We have, redundant 10 gig IP connections in all of our facilities. So we have plenty of connectivity, but oftentimes when we're working with customers around Site Recovery Manager, they really have investments in private networks, and they want to extend those networks to us for compliance considerations. So we facilitate that as well. But as we go through the stack, we're obviously leveraging purpose-built infrastructure for the compute nodes. We're partnered with Dell there, as well as on the storage. We use Dell EqualLogic as well as Dell Compellent. The reason Compellent is actually relevant in this conversation, I'll explain in just a second. So with SRM 5, iLand is really excited about this host-based replication piece because, again, it really puts the solution within reach of a lot of customers that really wouldn't afford the technology previously. So how have we architected it? Well, to really provide our customers with 100% control over that automated recovery process, we have to provision a dedicated ESX cluster. And we do that in the iLand data center. We also are leveraging our service provider capabilities with VMware to provide a subscription-based licensing associated with both SRM as well as the compute capacity. So you don't have to worry about the headaches of figuring out the new vSphere model, right? We can help you on the service provider side. Hey! That's a fair shot, I think. You guys definitely stepped up to the plate.
Simple and efficient model. That's all I'm going to say.
That's right. But so we're very excited to be able to offer the solution because we actually deliver that on our side, and then we work with our customers, depending on their network, to help set up a site-to-site VPN or a private line connection to us so we can help facilitate the solution for them. So to accomplish this, iLand goes to market with some of the most dynamic solution providers in the country, as well as around the globe. We're very pleased to recognize two of these providers today. One is Delta Systems. Delta Systems Associates. You guys could stand up, just wave to everybody. If you guys have questions about implementing this solution, hands-on experience with SRM 5, talk to them. Great partner of ours. They're based in Northern California. They have all their VMware solution competencies, and they actually have invested in the cloud to the tune of drinking their own water, if you will, or eating their own dog food. I hate to say it, but Michael and his company, they've actually virtualized all their infrastructure, and it all runs in iLand's cloud. So they're obviously leveraging us for production, for disaster recovery, but they work very closely with their customers to deliver these solutions. Now, the other partner that I'm pleased to recognize as well, Jason, Jeff, all you guys back there, Dynetech. Dynetech's a great partner of ours as well. These guys are a national solution provider, and they also have all their solution competencies. And we've had a great relationship with Dynetech over the years, very pleased to work with them on this solution. And in working with Dynetech and working with DSA, when we talked about this and working with the beta of SRM 5, actually Jason wanted to introduce the technology to one of his customers. And we're delighted to have with us today Chris Pinkney. He's the CIO of Somas. If you guys can join me.
Yeah, I think this is pretty exciting.
How many of you guys have jumped up on a session before and actually talked about your infrastructure? So we're going to give Chris a few minutes to talk about his company, his infrastructure, and his experience with SRM5. Thank you.
How's everyone doing today? Mike on?
Mike.
All right. So thanks for having me out. Great hotel. I start with a joke, right? So great hotel. You know it's a good hotel when there's a phone next to the toilet. You know it's a great hotel when that phone has two extensions. So Somas does civil engineering. I always think civil is short for civilization. So the roads you drive down, the bridges you drive over, the
Ooh. Wow.
Whoa.
Good. No napping in my session, okay?
They didn't like the joke,
Yours
Chris.
is turned way
didn't
up.
like the joke. Sorry.
Wow.
So is the mic back on? Is everyone all right? So we do the roads, the bridges, the houses you live in, and what's interesting about the houses is, well, I bought my house about 6 years ago at the very peak of the market, and then the pricing went all the way down to the ground. And so as what we do for a living stopped, we had to kind of retool to do other civil engineering for other divisions. And so it was an interesting irony because the board of directors, as you guys have said, disaster recovery is on their top 5 concerns, things we need to address. But at the same time, we were about a little almost half of what we were as far as money coming in the door. So we didn't have the money to do the big capital outlay of a secondary disaster recovery site, even though we wanted to. So this is a very good fit for us to not have to do that capital outlay. It's a very good fit for us to move into the cloud. Since we've been doing that, we have this kind of cloud evolution going where last year we switched to Microsoft Business Productivity Online Suite. If you have about an hour, I can explain how interesting that was. And then how April was quite an interesting month for all the BPOS users out there. But so far, so good, except for those things. And then we switched to a cloud-based backup solution from Riverbed called Whitewater. And so that allowed us to no longer buy backup tapes, which is awesome. I always think of backup tapes as like when you're in the car, 20 years ago with your old man, and he's listening to the Top Gun soundtrack, and it starts to warble, and you go, no, it's eating the tape, and you got to like pull it out and respool it. I always think of backup tapes like that. So we're really happy to not have to do that anymore, and we went to a cloud-based backup solution. So, but what did we do with the data center? And that was kind of the last thing. So what we ended up doing is working with Dyntech, working with Island, and actually implementing all this technology that you guys have seen for the past hour. So I know I'm keeping you guys from lunch, and I know that I think during this part of it that you're all mostly deaf now, so sorry about that. But let me just say, as a customer, we've been very happy to work with our partners, and very happy about this solution. And if you have any questions, let me know. Thanks.
Cool. Thanks so much. Just wanted to give you a little bit of information about steps that you can take to learn more before you go. So we are going to have this reception that is listed here tomorrow, and I definitely encourage you to come and ask questions. All the service providers are going to be there. We're going to have a lot of VMware folks that have been involved as well, so it's a great place to ask questions. If you cannot make it, I definitely encourage you to send us an email to, again, srm@vmware.com. We can help you connect with some of the providers that were on the panel or the channel partners. I'm very happy to answer questions. I know that it's kind of new and there might be things that are coming up and we haven't had a lot of time to cover today. Also, you can visit our partners at the booth. I'm going to leave the numbers here. But other than that, I'd like to open it for questions in the few minutes we have. Yeah, right. So currently, as some of you might be aware of, SRM does not integrate with VCD, with vCloud Director. It's definitely on our roadmap, and we're working with partners to make sure that from the user's perspective, it shouldn't be much of an issue. So right now, there is no integration. In the future, as we integrate with the partners, there's going to be one environment that's going to contain everything. That's definitely where we're going. And what I would recommend is if you want to hear more about how it's going to look like when it's coming out, what's the vision, there's another session that Ashwin, our product manager for SRM, is hosting. There's another session, I believe, tomorrow, and I think it's called something like Site Recovery Manager 5 Futures / Cloud Futures. Wednesday. So you have one more day to figure what's going on, and then attend on Wednesday.
I got a question by email. You may have to repeat that question.
Sure.
Are there any limitations to the replication features specifically related to what it can or cannot handle?
Yes. So there's a question about vSphere application, kind of the scalability limitations, I'd presume. So essentially, any storage that works with vSphere works with vSphere application, right? So it's storage agnostic, which is going to be kind of the key enabler of what we've discussed here. It supports up to 500 virtual machines per instance. So we believe that for most of the customers that are within the target segment of this type of solution, the solution is scalable enough. Anything else,
There is
Bernie?
a question about support for Apple Virtual Server.
For?
Apple Virtual Server.
I have to get back to you. Gaetan, any information on that? No. We'll get back to you. Anything else? All right. Thank you guys very much. I appreciate it. You coming.
I think it's working. I don't see why not.